many of you have studied the way people spend at retail over the course of their lives. And in the US anyway, based on the best data we have, there's a fairly predictable cadence to how you consume at different stages of your life. So before the age of 25, you're largely either unemployed or working at very low wage jobs. You're often a dependent, and therefore you spend on average under 5% of your total lifetime spend at retail. You're mostly buying books, music, entertainment sort of categories, maybe some apparel. But somebody else is buying your food, somebody else is buying your big ticket items. Once you reach 25 to 55, that's often the point in your life when you start to build a house. Many people get married, they buy a house, and then they have to fill that house with big ticket items like furniture, they might purchase a car. And so between those ages of 25 to 55, on average, most people spend about 2/3 of their total lifetime consumption. And then in that sort of third stage, 55 plus, people start to gradually shift away from retail. They are pretty well set in terms of their style, so they're not buying clothes every season. Their body isn't changing as much, so they don't need to get a new fit. And what you'll find is, many people actually really shift their food at home and food away from home spending mix. So the reason I share this with you is when we look at the retail formats, even the specific retail banners that drove growth in our industry during phase 2, the category specialists, the warehouse clubs, the supercenters, who were those stores built for? Were they built for the shopper that was born after 1985, who's about to enter that really heavy consumption life stage between the ages of 25 and 55? Or were they built for a shopper who is essentially hitting that 55 plus stage and will now be sort of gradually migrating away from retail? It's our view that the stores that drove growth over the last 20 years were built for a very different shopper than the shopper that's going to drive growth over this next phase. And so I'll share with you in a little while more detail on some of the distinctions between those generations, but just pause for a minute and think about some of the really fundamental attitudinal and behavioral distinctions between that last generation of heavy shopper and this coming generation. So that last generation of heavy shopper was mechanical. These were people that could change a tire, change their oil, and could install anything that needed installation or setup. The next generation is a really digital generation. They're not just digitally enabled, they're digitally dependent. They don't change their oil, they pay somebody to do it for me. They're also much, much more mobile than the previous generation. And when I say mobile, I don't mean the handset in the palm of your hand. I mean, these people aren't staying in their hometowns. They're moving from city to city. If they go to school, and about a quarter of the population goes to college after high school, they're either staying there or they're using that as a launch pad to go somewhere else. So they're much, much more mobile. They're deferring starting their family life in their household. They're getting married later, and secondly, they're having fewer children. So I suggest that when we think about where the growth will come from in our industry, household composition and the attitudes and behaviors of this next generation of heavy shopper are really going to drive much different experiences at retail. And the simplest way I can make that point is to share with you the results of a survey that just asked 18 to 34-year-olds, which media do you prefer to consume? How do you like to receive messages? And when you overlay our industry's marketing budget against those responses, what you quickly conclude is that the industry, at least until the present time, has been spending and investing almost inversely to what the next generation of heavy shoppers wants to consume. There's a fundamental disconnect between the way that we're organized, between our strategies, our capabilities, and what this coming generation of heavy shoppers expects. So we think that there's going to have to be a fundamental transformation of the way that we engage the shopper, and it's happening faster than we think.